Okay, so what we're going to do now is, as I said before in the previous chapter, we are going to start working more on our general lighting of our scene. I want to start by just adding some very basic stuff. So one of them, I'm sure if you've ever used Unreal, you know, it is the sphere reflection captures. These are basically objects over here. If I go to my visual effects, and then you will have a sphere reflection capture that will be able to properly capture all of the reflections in our scene. It is important to have these because else your reflections will not be accurate, and sometimes it will also drastically change your scene. What I like to do is, because this is quite a big scene, I like to have a few of them that are overlapping. I'm not going to go in like super specific, like you can go really specific if you need perfect reflections, like for example on a car you need to have perfect reflections, then you can do that. For now we are just going to do it general, and what this means is that sometimes if we see a reflection it might not be perfectly accurate because your sphere is too far away to properly capture it. But try to just have some overlapping and simply go ahead and duplicate your reflection captures a few times over here. That's often like the easiest way to get started with when you don't know yet exactly how you're going to make your entire scene. And then back here I will just do one that it has like a bigger radius. So here we have like a radius, and that one is more just for like our buildings and stuff. Like this. Okay, nothing will probably change. You do want to go ahead and go to build and build reflection captures. See, you could see like a tiny bit change here and there. It's nothing special. It's just something that we need to have. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to go and... You know what? Let's first of all add like a bit of like a sky with some stars. As you know, this is a pack that I have downloaded. Well, I have bought it, so I'm not actually able to give it to you guys. But you can also buy it. It's the Space Skybox Collection 2. And in the very beginning of this tutorial course, I showed you where to find it. I'm just going to use this for some stars. Very easy. I'm just going to drag in my SM Sky Sphere mesh over here. And I'm going to set my lock on my scale and set this to like, I don't know, 20 or something like that. So that it's like a really large sphere over here. And the reason that it's so white is because it needs an actual sky. So we can go to our material instances and we can grab, for example, let's try this one. And then you can basically just go to your camera, and if you want to just see and find one that has like some interesting sky, so you can drag in like different skies and stuff. I'm gonna go for this one over here. Totally fine, that's all I need. You can also press your rotate button and you can... Oh no, sorry, you can go into your material and then you can rotate stuff in here. Here you go, 0 rotation, and you can play around with that. I'm not going to do that because I already have the correct settings for this. Let me just carefully move my camera down. So there we go. Oh god, my camera is way too fast. There we go. So that will just add like a little bit of stars. Nothing too special again. Now the next thing that I want to do is I'm just going to go into my post-process volume over here and make a few small changes. So one of them is, so the exposure is fine. Maybe set this to 5. No, 5.5 or 6. No, let's do 5.5, same as before. Let's go into our bloom, and our bloom will just add like that extra bit of glow. So if I actually press G to get rid of my pivot, because the pivot point itself tends to also glow. And now I can go into my intensity, and then I can kind of like set how... Oh wow, it's back again. But yeah, let's do 2.5 or something like that to add a little bit of glow to our scene. For the rest, in Unreal Engine 4, the post effects were very important. However, in Unreal Engine 5, a lot of these settings are being done by the Lumen system, so we no longer need to do a lot of it. Honestly, most of these we can ignore. I will not really go over them too much. You can play around in your global and everything to get like more of a gamma or less, stuff like that, to make your scene a little bit lighter. I'm gonna set this one, for example, the gamma to 1.05. However, I'm not going to do any color grading yet. This is because I first of all want to, of course, make sure that my scene looks correct and that we have all of our lights in here. And what I'm going to do is after that, we are going to add some custom color grading, which we will actually create in Photoshop. It's the only time that we will not be using Unreal in this entire course. So we are going to keep the color grading and scroll down. Lumen is fine. If you want, you can go to your lumen quality and set this higher and just see if it makes a difference. In this case, it looks like it does not. Your reflections can be lumen. It's also fine. I'm going to set my quality to 1.5 because I know that I have a lot of reflections on my cars and stuff like that. And that's it. Most of these settings, they will not actually change anything because Lumen is taking care of most of it for us. Okay, now one that you probably have been waiting for, and that is the volumetric fog. The volumetric fog is always a little bit iffy, but we can see if we can make it work well. So in your lighting, you will have your exponential height fog over here. I'm just going to delete that because I want to have a fresh start. And your exponential height fog is your volumetric fog. So if you go down here to add an object, visual effects, and add an exponential height fog, like this, then what we can do is we can go ahead and scroll down. And as soon as we turn on volumetric fog, it will probably blow out. Yeah, it will blow out as I expected over here. And what we need to do is we kind of like need to find the right balance. Like you can see the volumetric fog over here, but of course this is not working as well. Let's go ahead and let's have a look. So we have the fall off over here. This is just a fall off for your fog in like the height. So I want to have my base exponential height fog to be not as strong. Sorry, I was just messing out with the settings. This slide, let's go. But the thing is, if I tone this down, it will also tone down the rest of my volumetric fog. And for some reason, it makes my fog looks really blue, which is a bit interesting. So here you can see like there is some volumetric fog going on. We just kind of like want to play around with it. Let's now go down to the volumetric fog here. Basically what I'm trying to say is that it's a bit of back and forth. You change the upper values up here, and then you need to go down, change the lower values. So with this one, you have your scattering distribution. That one often does not do much. So let's keep this at 0.2. You have your color, and with this you can tone down your volumetric fog a little bit and stuff. And if something is too blue, you can also go ahead and just push it into the opposite of blue, which is like warm, to give it, for example, like a warmer tone. So something you can play with. I'm gonna go for actually a little bit of just like neutral white probably, or maybe even like a tiny bit of blue, and then tone this down. And it's trying to find that balance. The extinction scale is how strong you want to have your volumetric fog. So you can see that now it's almost nothing, and we just want to make this like let's undo that. For some reason there is a bug going on where it randomly turns it blue, and then as soon as we change the colors, it turns it back to white. See? That's not normal. I cannot tell you why it's doing that. Maybe it's just like one of those iffy Unreal Engine 5 things that because the engine is quite new. But what we can do is we can just get like a little bit of like this volumetric fog in here, something like this. Now, normally, because our volumetric fog is so low, since we are creating a night scene, it might not do it, but sometimes, let's just try it out. If you, for example, create a light, I want to show you. I cannot promise you it will work right now, but when you create a light like this, let's make it like go down. Let's make the intensity like 2 over here. You can set something called volumetric scattering intensity. If you set this higher, it will add more volumetric fog to this specific light. Maybe if I set my radius a little bit lower, I can show you a bit more. It's a bit difficult to see, so maybe we can push it like, well, we probably cannot. Can you see it? It's really difficult to see. Can I go even higher? Can I go like 100? Ah, now I can. So here you can see that if I set it really high, you kind of like need to push it. You can see that we get like this volumetric fog that comes specifically more from this light. Now, knowing that, what we can do is we can go ahead and we can have a look over here at our street lights. And I want to probably make those a little bit more intense. So what I can do is I can click on a street light, press edit street light over here. And then I just need to go to my spotlight in here. And if I set my volumetric scattering intensity to like, let's do 5. Press save and compile. Yeah, a little bit stronger. Let's do like 15. Save, compile, it will actually update. See? So now we get like a little bit more volumetric fog from those lights. And it kind of depends on you how strong that you want to have it. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to tone down the fog a little bit more. It's all just like tweaking a bit. We are going to later on in the second lighting pass, of course, also tweak things a little bit more. But for now, we want to go ahead and let's set this one. Let's see, something like this maybe. Yes, I think for now, before the color grading, this is fine. Let's go into our street light and set this one to like 50. Let's try something much higher. Because it's not very sensitive. 100. Save, compile. It does not feel like it's doing much, to be honest. The lights are definitely there, so maybe it's also like the angle. I think we are pushing our fog too low, which is causing it not to show up. It's really tricky to get this balance. Let's see, if I set this higher. No, that still does not seem to work exactly the way that I want it to. That sucks. But we are going to figure it out. Let's set, let's have a look. Why are you not working? What I can do is I can see if it is maybe something that really has to do just with like the street light, which can happen. So volumetric scattering intensity, that's fine. And we have that intensity. So if I would go in here, theoretically, if I create a normal light, like a spotlight, rotate it. So I will show you a little bit of like debugging to make sure why the lights are not working, and then we can kind of like figure it out. I can go in here, and if I set this one, let's say that I set my angle a bit lower and set my intensity to 100. Here, see? For this one it does work, but it's also very subtle. Let's do like 200. 200. Let's do 150. I think 150 is it. So we just had it too low, which is impressive that we need to go this high just to get a little bit of volumetric light. Now, there we go. Yeah, okay. Now I can start seeing it a little bit better. So that's already starting to look a little bit better. And then, of course, we are going to add a little bit more lights after this. One thing to keep in mind is, for example, now I'm changing my blueprint. However, I'm also using this blueprint, for example, in our original scene. So you might see what happens is that now if I go to my original scene, which has the lighting more finalized, that the volumetric lights, see, are a little bit stronger here. This is just balancing. So this is why I'm just trying to balance it out. And for now, if this is the original scene, yeah, we are starting to get closer. We first of all want to focus on just getting the scene working, and then we can start to balance it. Okay, we have the fog set up. The next step would probably be to add some fake lighting, which will just enhance our entire environment. For example, right now we have some blue lights over here, yes, but it does not really hit the ground. The ground is looking very boring. What we can do with this is very easy. We can simply add an area light. So rectangle light. I call it an area light because that's what it's often called in other software. And then we can go ahead at 90 and just give it like an angle. Like this. We are going to move it roughly over here. And then what you want to do is you want to set your source width and height a little bit bigger. you also have over here this barn door angle, which is basically the angle of your light, as you can see. So you can move that down a little bit too. And then if we, for example, go into our camera actor, you can see that if I now change my color to be a little bit more of like this blue color and then change the intensity to, for example, 3 or something, it gives off that blue color glow that we have. And I first of all want to just try and define the color that I want. Let's do something like this. And that also works nice on our cars and everything. Let's set our height a little bit lower. I definitely need to work on some color grading later. But what we can do now is just in the general zones. So we know that, for example, this zone over here. Let's do 2. We are going to have 2 zones here. So one, let's say around this point, which I'm not going to make as strong. I'm going to make it like 1, because there's a truck right in front of it. And another one that I'm going to make like 3 or 2 of these blue zones over here. So that will give us a little bit of like the blue glow. Let's make the one with the truck a little bit stronger too. And maybe let's make the color also a little bit stronger. Let's not be afraid to really throw in like a strong splash of color, like this. And then if you want, over here, you can also have like a white zone, but that might just be like the normal look. So just like that, we can go ahead and we can add a little bit more lighting. Now, please remember that lights are very expensive to use in a scene. The more lights we use, the slower our scene will run. And even now, because we have so many neon lights, our FPS is already running around 30 or 40 FPS. So in this specific case, I am going to go more for quality than optimization. However, it is something to keep in mind that you cannot often have this many neon signs and still have everything working without some specific optimization. And on top of that, what you can do is you can sometimes turn off shadows on lights, which will actually optimize it quite a bit. Now what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go ahead and this neon sign over here, it's really blue, but as you can see, it gives off almost no light. So what I want to do is I want to have one light sitting roughly around here, like this. And let's go ahead and make this color here a little bit stronger, because I want to have like quite a strong color here. Let's set the intensity to like 3. Then what we can do is we can also have another light here in front of this area. And then next what I want to do, actually that looks really dark blue. I kind of want to go for like, oh no, that's fine. That should be fine. The next thing that we can do is we can duplicate this light, rotate it around, turn off your shadows and set your source height a little bit lower. And it will almost be like a nice strip of light. If we set this to like 1 or 0.5, it will also enhance our signs a little bit more. It's not a very optimized way. A more optimized way would be to create a emissive decal that you will place on top of it or that you will incorporate into the model. But it will bring out your text a lot better, see? And then it's just up to you to, for example, say 0.5 is too much, so let's do 0.3 or 2. Yeah, let's do 0.2 over here to kind of like tone that down. Okay, so we got that one. Now what we're going to do is we have over here, let's have a red zone. I'm just going to call these like zones, like red zone, green zone. And what I will do is I will just quickly set the color. And then later on I will set the intensities down to get exactly what we want. So we can go in here. Let's do a bit further. Here we have like another blue zone. Can go ahead and rotate this 180. Maybe this time set the width a little bit lower. Go over here. I'm trying not to clip my lights because else you can see these hard cuts because of the shadows. But what we can do is with this one we can go for like a pink zone. And that's basically like the easiest way for you to very quickly balance out and get exactly the lights that you want in your scene. So we have this one over here, and then later on we also will have some stuff down here, but let's not focus on that right now. So now you can see that that already starts to add even more. So we get these interesting looking zones. Now I'm just going to go one by one. So we have our red zone. Our red zone is causing some problems with our street light. So let's move this up a little bit. And maybe set the radius a little bit bigger. There we go. For our red zone. You know what? Over here, the blue zone, I'm also going to set my radius a little bit bigger. So, because there's so much blue stuff going on, it just makes it feel a bit nicer. And I'm going to make my color a little bit more intenser over here. And then maybe like tone it down a tiny bit. But I quite like having quite intense colors. I'm also going to introduce some contrast with my color grading in just a bit. But that's something that we will work on in the next chapter. So we got this one. We have a red zone over there. And then we have a blue zone here. But the blue zone is being a little bit blocked. What if I rotate also this light? No. I think what I will do is I will just add some fake lighting in this area to make it look a bit more interesting. That's another pass that we will do, is we will literally just add fake lighting to some buildings. Lights that do not even exist. Just to get a little bit of like an interesting effect. Now, for this one, by the way, what you can do is you can go ahead and create a light and just create like a point light. And move the point light somewhere here. Let's turn off shadows at this point. And let's make this like a nice red color. Set the intensity to like 1. And then play around with your radius. And that's basically just like a way of quickly faking that light. Because it will look so much better. Even though technically, yes, the light would not hit that part. It just looks nicer. So if we do a simple point light, and it's not too expensive. Because we are turning off the shadows and everything. It's still somewhat expensive, but we can go ahead and just, there we go, add that extra little bit of flavor to it. So over here we have a pink zone. That's looking quite cool, although I think it's maybe a little bit too intense. Let's go 1.5 maybe. Yeah, I like that. Let's have a look. So here we have like an orange zone. I want to make it a little bit more like a warmer orange and then tone it down, the color strength a bit. Set this also to 1.5 because these are not as strong. Let's see, can we see this back street? No, so you won't really notice if I do anything special there anyway. Over here we have another yellow zone, so what we can do is we can grab another light here and just kind of like point it into this direction. I think this light can actually not have shadows, although you can see here it makes quite a big difference having shadows or not. So you kind of want to just always check. Here, see, it makes too big of a difference. You always want to check if you can get away with not having shadows or if you feel like you really need them. So we got some yellow here, but that's too much. Let's set this to 0.5. And the reason it's too much is because now we don't see much of our blue anymore. So let's just tone down my source width. And then also my radius a little bit. Also, one thing that you want to do is in your rectangle lights, set them to movable. When you set them to movable, they will use the full power of lumen and they will not try to still expect you to bake lighting or weird stuff like that. Over here, I kind of need to turn off shadows. Like at this point, but then we are going to make it very soft. So like an intensity of 0.1 and make it like quite small. And it's just here to kind of like fake push the lighting much further out than it's supposed to go. Over here. Yeah, let's set these even lower. 0.05 in the intensity, for example. So that when we look at it from the side, we just get like this general area that's a little bit lit up and stuff like that, which I quite like. Okay, so you can see that we are slowly getting more and more of our lighting in, and it is starting to look already quite a bit better. If I have a look at this, before I want to start adding my fake lighting, which I will do in the next chapter, I need to have a think if I forgot anything, because I feel like I'm forgetting something, but on my notes it looks like that I pretty much have everything I want. I'm going to clean up my scene a little bit. That's something I will do. Lighting, lighting, and the fog can also go in lighting. Yeah, I think I feel like what I'm missing is just the color grading. That's probably it. I'm going to build my reflection captures now that we have so many more lights over here. Let's go ahead and save our scene. Yeah, you know what? That's probably it. It's probably just me not having the color grading yet. But that's something that I want to work on a little bit later. So what I'm going to do for now is I am going to quickly go into lighting and just grab my skylight and set the light color over here a little bit down of my skylight to be a little bit more gray, because I feel like my windows are a little bit too bright. I'm going to save my scene, and now in the next chapter it's probably best if we do a little bit of color grading. Yeah, and I'm also missing some of the reflections on my cars, especially like this one. I was hoping for like some stronger reflections, but just in general, also over here we still need to add decals, which will actually add more reflections. So let's go ahead and save our scene, and in the next chapter we will start with our color grading. Then we will go ahead and add some extra fake lights, and then we will just finalize our lighting paths, at which point we can go back to just placing some more smaller scale assets. And we are getting slowly closer and closer to finalizing this environment. So let's go ahead and continue with this in our next chapter.